A person in a situation can do anything. I mean, we see movie actors. We see what they do. We see what they perform. We see who they are. It's miraculous how they do that. And they have the sets and everything around them to tell them, yes, you are Spartacus. And sometimes when they get off the set and they go into the trailer, they go, I am Spartacus, you know. That's part of the training. And so actually to take those reflections or whatever you learn in those compartments and actually have them be your life is a whole different thing.
To actually integrate that.
To allow them to become integrated is definitely a challenge, because we all know how to put on a show. We all know how to do a seminar. We are seminarians. That's probably not the right word, but we won't go there. We all have that skill. We've learned to do that. We all know, okay, what's this party require? Okay, this party requires drinking and dancing. Okay, I can do that. I'll go in. Then we go into another thing called a classroom. Well, this is not, don't dance and drink here. It won't work here. Do this here. And then we go home. Okay, this requires saying, yeah, mom, yeah, mom, yeah, mom. Okay, I can do this. So we learn that. That is our most developed skill, compartmentalization.
So we learn to be like different selves in these different situations.
Exactly. And some of us who become smooth get good at it. Other people not so good at it. The people who we consider successes in ordinary life are good at it. They can sell us a story. You have to make sure I'm not this person, that I'm selling you a story and I'm good in this seminar, I'm good in this speech, I speak well, I tell good stories, I make jokes, I fuck around, you know? Maybe so. So somebody would have to get to know me to know that. That's why I say for somebody to really help you, there's two requirements that they have to have. Two requirements. One is they have to be able to mail a letter for you, and they have to be willing to pass the salt, able and willing to pass the salt to you. Those are the two. Now, if you can get somebody who's willing to do those things and able to do those things for you, you have the basics. That rules out everyone who's no longer alive. That rules out everyone who's not around you. So think of how many people that you have in your life that you imagine are helping you, but they're not around you, and they're no longer alive. Now, because their picture is on your wall, or your thoughts about them are in your head, they still are for you to manipulate. They are what you make them in any one moment. And you are compartmentalized in that way for yourself. You are what you make yourself in any one moment. You're the controller. And since you are that controller, some of that has to break down, and your compartmentalization has to break down. And in doing that, subtly, not in a traumatic way, but subtly, with help, what happens is some of these people that you are tend to pop up in other situations just because you're surprised. It's very enlivening. It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit unaccustomed. But it certainly is healthy for breaking down this thing that we're talking about called, that I'm calling compartmentalization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that sometimes the interventions with which you help point this out sometimes, in my experience, come across looking pretty feisty, and another spiritual cliche is kind of what we might call the love and light cliche, that, you know, sweetness is spiritual, and that that anger or feistiness or whatever wouldn't be, and yet there seems to be a method to your madness. So I assume it's intentional for you that you sometimes kind of bring the sword or are harsh.
There is a method to my madness, but there's no madness to my method. I basically agree with with what you said in a what did you call it? Love and Light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with kindness. I wrote in the tweets that I put every day on Twitter, which I just joined, and I'm having a lot of fun trying to squeeze all my thoughts into that number of words. That I said something about pettiness, that pettiness is our collective adversary and our individual adversary as humans, and I do sincerely and deeply believe that, and I try to live that. I also believe that kindness is our most divine virtue, and kindness is, if I don't ever come from kindness, there is something severely wrong. Now, kindness, I'll tell you something about my life. When I lived in Santa Barbara and I started at California and I started a group there, soon after, maybe a year after, I decided, well, this is time to take these dozen people or so out on the road, meaning into the mountains, into the Andes, where I have some history, and who knows, maybe even meet this person who was one of my mentors, and but at least to get up there in the Andes and travel around, and some of those places are really far from, you might call, civilization, a few steps away, like 4 days travel from anything that could be considered a hospital or a doctor. So I thought, well, if I'm going to take people out there, I need to develop my emergency medical skills, and because I know the rudiments, but because I was a Boy Scout, but beyond that, not really so much. So I did. I spent a year, really a little more, a couple of years, and I got a certification as a EMT, and then I rode the 911 truck, the emergency truck, and I did hours at the emergency room in the hospital, and I did that for a couple of years. So I learned a lot, and I got certified as an EMT, and I did that, and I thought that was a good thing to do. Fortunately, I didn't have to use that on that trip, but I did go through that training, and one of the things that I did in that training in the emergency room, because Santa Barbara is at the bottom of a very circuitous road that comes down from the mountains, and people drink. I go on the weekends and they drink up at the top of this place at a tavern up there, and they come down on motorcycles, and one of the main things that we do on the truck is pick up. We got a call, motorcycle down on San Marcos Road, motorcycle down, and then it's frequent. And then they bring the motorcycle guy in. Usually the injuries aren't too severe, but sometimes they are. And sometimes a person is just really, their bike went down, they got dragged along the road, they weren't wearing the right heavy enough clothes, and they got gravel in their cuts and stuff like that. And my job is to get the gravel out of their cuts. You got to get the gravel out of their cuts. Now, the kindest way to do that is to get the gravel out of their cuts. And so I ask a person, do you want this done slow or do you want this done fast? Because it hurts like hell. And so we have the authority to use topical anesthetic. It doesn't do all that much. It's not like you get numb from a toothache. It still hurts like hell, but it hurts a little less, but it still hurts. So kindness isn't, but you got to get it out or it's going to get infected and that person's going to be fucked up badly. So kindness in that case requires some amount of abrasion, right? And sometimes it does. If we have aspects of our personality that are self-destructive, and everyone has aspects of their personality that are self-destructive, and the even calling a person's attention to that can be abrasive. Now, if it can be done, kindness isn't always doing it sweetly, any more than kindly. Kind would be if you see your kid or a kid about to walk out into traffic, you would say, "Hi, Sonny. Hi, little girl. Would you come back?" You'd grab them by the shoulders and you grab them, and they'd say, "Hey, why are you grabbing me? That was mean." but you'd be saving their life, and you'd be knowing there would be kindness in your heart. There is always kindness in my heart. I have nothing but kindness in my heart. I don't need anything from people. I don't need recognition. I don't need money. I don't need gifts. I don't need acknowledgement. All I have is kindness left to give. Sometimes it comes out that that person is challenged, and we're not used to being challenged. But we need to be challenged, because if we don't recognize some of these self-destructive tendencies, how in the world would they ever fade away? The first part of treatment is diagnosis. There is no treatment that happens without diagnosis. You go into a doctor and they say, what's wrong? You say, well, I'm not sure. Nothing much. Can't be sure. They say, well, I don't even know where to start. So diagnosis is needed. And in order to diagnose, sometimes situations become not a lot, but a little bit challenging. I'm not looking to challenge, but I'm looking for those things to surface so that they can dissipate.